Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I am happy to have your company for meditation this evening. We will do our usual with about 50 minutes of meditation with a little commentary and instruction. And our little miniature break in the middle. And one reminder about that break, which is good any time that you're practicing. You come to a break in the practice, the bell at the end. Use that moment to see exactly where you are in your practice, to notice. Notice whether you're in a phase of distraction or attention or whatever. Just notice. And then you have a chance to come back to the practice. So we have that little official stretch break in the middle. We have the bell at the end. Both times you can use that. It's a very precise moment when the bell rings. You can see. Most of us are familiar with the question, are we there yet? We probably asked that, or something very much like it, when we were kids. We've probably heard it, or something like it. We've probably made the pronouncement, or heard somebody make the pronouncement, I'll be happy when. Or I will do this when. They're very closely related things. And if you look carefully at what goes on in your experience throughout your life, it's easy to see the dominance of this as a kind of a background thing going on. I will be able to do this after I've finished that. I'll be able to relax once this project is done. I'll be happy when I've resolved this wrinkle in this relationship. There's no problem with resolving wrinkles or finishing a project or any of that, but if you look carefully at the habit pattern of constantly looking forward to some other time when things will be actually okay. I'll be able to take a deep breath after this. But there are always overlapping things going on. There's always something coming up. So the answer to the question, are we there yet, is almost always no. And if we look closely, there is a way in which there is a kind of continual searching for something. And in that, there is a barrier to actually seeing what's going on right in the moment. When we're in that frame of mind of, are we there yet? I'll be happy when. We're already launched past where we are. We assume that what's arising in the moment is not actually a place where we can look for, discover the potential for deep well-being. So when we're sitting down to practice, it's a good time to let that whole perspective go. Perhaps instead of, are we there yet, we could ask, am I here yet? And that's one of the primary aspects of calm abiding meditation, is to allow us to be present with what's arising, to allow us to look into that, free from the pressure to be somewhere else, do something else, feel something else. And while in practice of meditation we can discover that it is possible for the mind to relax, it is possible for us to experience some kind of peace of mind, that perhaps is not the most significant thing that we can discover. If we can actually witness the way that the mind grasps and leads us into the patterns of hoping for some kind of better outcome in the future, if we can actually witness how this arises, possibility for deep freedom is there. Most often in our practice, when we're sitting down, we've placed our attention on the breath or another reference, or we've just settled the mind into, open awareness, free of chasing after things or trying to get rid of things. Usually we only discover the process that gets us hooked after we're completely distracted. But in that we have the opportunity to let go of that. And that opportunity to let go is evidence of some profound potential. The more we sit, the more likely it is that as we're sitting, having placed the mind and relaxed, we'll be able to witness the leading edge of a kind of a bubbling or churning, a wavering of our attention, a wavering into that state of grasping, into that state of chasing after things, into the state of telling ourselves stories about things, into the state of distraction. whether we have the capacity to witness that as it begins, or whether we only find out that this is going on by waking up in the midst of a distraction. In either case, we return again to the meditation, taking a vivid interest in the object of meditation, so we're vividly present, and beginning again in a relaxed state. So when we begin the practice, we begin with refuge. And we can talk about refuge using very esoteric words like Buddha nature, like our profound refuge is our own Buddha nature. And depending on our relationship with our practice and our studies, this may or may not have much meaning. But if we can see the potential for letting go of the distractedness, stepping outside of that frame of reference, always hoping for some kind of resolution in the future, we can see a deep protection that's possible by cultivating that skill. A skill that will lead us to the ability to discover our own potential for profound well-being, right within the heart of every experience. So we go for refuge, and in that also we recall that not only we are in this situation, chasing after things, that this is the common experience of all beings. So, wishing for our own liberation and for the liberation of all others, we go for refuge.
Till the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness. Until the summit of enlightenment is reached, I and all beings go for refuge to the sources of true refuge. I will now practice the absorption of calm abiding in order to release all beings from their particular suffering and establish them in lasting peace and happiness.
In meditation, basic principle is to approach it with as much simplicity as possible. If we want to meet our experience very directly, really know it as it arises, we have to let go of ideas about that experience. Simple approach is to just discover the experience of the flow of the breath. Remaining in simplicity, there's no need to improve upon it in any way. Whenever we discover distraction arising, we just take the moment to rediscover the experience of the breath. Vividly present with that experience. And relax within it.
By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state.
Take a small break here in a moment. But first, a reminder, a few things coming up. First on the list, for those who have been around for a while, the Mahamudra Aspiration Prayer will be familiar one way or another, since we recite that at the end of first Sundays and other times. And it's a prayer that encompasses, just in a few pages, it encompasses the whole piece of the Mahamudra path and the view. And Lama Michael will be giving a teaching on this on Saturday, May 28th. It's all day, it's not all day, 9 to 12, depends what you want to call it. 9 to 4, we'll just be precise, 9 to 4. And you can register for that online. There are quite a few people registered already. I just checked this afternoon. So I encourage you to do that. It should be a really wonderful thing. It's, as I said, it covers the arc of the practice. So there's a lot in there. There's also the Chenrezig retreat coming up June 18th to 25th. That would be with me. And a retreat with Lama Eric coming up August 20th to 28th, entitled Discovering Awareness. And you can read a little bit about that, about the retreats out there on the bulletin board on the break. And for these retreats, both scholars and scholarship donations are being sought. I'm tongue-in-cheek slightly about scholars, but people often are hesitant to ask for a scholarship. So scholarships are the way that we try to make things possible for people who can't otherwise afford retreats. So our side of it is trying to make the scholarships available, and what people have to do then is ask for them. So that's your side if you happen to be in that category. But if you're also in the category of people who could support the scholarship fund, that's great too. Donors, scholars, the whole thing. And these retreats, it's particularly with Lama Eric, he's not around all that much. He's been connected to KCC since the late 90s. He's not around all that much. He did a 3-year retreat at Bokar Rinpoche's monastery in northern India in the Darjeeling area. And we're fortunate that he's also been helping with aspects of the Mahamudra program when we go to India, translates. So it's a really great opportunity to have a chance to sit with him. And you can read about that. It includes you could say one of the primary focuses of that, it's a meditation retreat. We do a lot of calm abiding, but the frame of reference is the 3 solitudes. So it's in silence, body, speech, and mind, kind of remaining within the cloister, keeping silent, and attending to the practice. And so there's some requirements there, and one of the ones a couple of ones that are like, oh really, no reading, Not even kind of dharma things. Leaving reading behind. So that's a different. And no writing. We had kind of a long discussion about it this morning. Somebody said, no journaling? No. So there's some great opportunities. We could look at all these things as, oh, these are things, well, I don't have to read. Instead of, I don't get to read. But what you find out when you engage in these, in this, is that you find out a lot more about yourself when you're not occupying yourself with conversation, with reading, and all the rest. So.
What about drawing? Is that different?
Now we'll come back to that after our break. We'll take that as the first question.
And you could elaborate on what the three solitudes are.
Yeah. Yeah. Body, speech, and mind. So I have a cup of nice warm water myself. Whoever would like a cup of tea.